compared to you guys.
Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another salty Saturday morning. I am your host, the belabored producer, Mr. Kadish. And guys, I have some very bad news before I introduce my fantastic panel of nerds. Unfortunately, Keanu Thompson, who was scheduled to be our special guest today, had to cancel at the last minute. There was a tragedy in the family, and so obviously family comes first. So she wasn't able to make it today. However, we have the next best thing. He's just as sexy as she is, Mr. Reagan. From the Mr. Reagan channel. How you doing, Mr. Reagan? Thank you for being here. And
you didn't actually tell me it was Keanu.
Yes,
I know Keanu.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, guys, but I can flutter my eyelashes if you need me to. Yeah.
Yes. Well, you have the face for TV, as I like to say. So we're glad to have you on.
Pretty. Yeah.
Yes, just as pretty. Not quite as funny though as Keanu, but
He's hilarious. Actually,
want to give a big congratulations to Keanu because she just got married, and unfortunately, she had this event happen, so she's not able to be with us today. But we will reschedule her. So all you Keanu fans out there, like, she will be back on the show. We've had her on the show in the past. She likes being here. She likes us. So it was not a personal dig at anyone. But Dutch Butters, good to have you here. How you doing today?
I'm here, and I'm ready to. Well, I'm not really ready to talk about any of these things because it is what it is. But here we are, and I'm happy to be here. It's nice to hang out with you guys and the chat. And what are you laughing at, Brian? Me just mumbling.
You're just so like not interested to be here. Clearly,
it's good to be
You're
here.
just like, if
I
have to be here, I'll be here.
I'm really excited.
That's not right.
I'm really excited about doing my own show today.
Yeah. If Mr. Butters wasn't contractually obligated to be here every Saturday, he would not be showing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nope, not at all.
My graphics card is not working.
Yeah,
so
I'd go play some
I'm gonna end the
video
show.
games.
And guys, he just finished his pineapple pizza lunch. Odin of OMB Reviews is now joining us.
Hello,
How you doing, Odin?
how's it going? So my audio wasn't working for a second.
It's okay. Thank you for being here today.
Again, man.
Of course.
And for those of you wondering, Tom Connors Jr. is too busy eating cereal right now, so he won't be joining us for the entire live stream. But he sends his best, and we will miss Tom's additions to the conversation. But last but certainly not least, the man of the hour, who's going to be doing a special birthday live stream.
Yes.
Right after this show. Brian from the Popcast. How you doing, Brian?
Not bad. Can I show you guys something real quick? I want to show you something that
as long as it's not your peen.
Oh, well, never mind then. No, I'm kidding. No, this made me laugh my absolute giant, huge rear end off this morning. This tweet from Matt Kadish. Leonardo DiCaprio has endorsed Kamala Harris, and Matt Kadish says, "Isn't she a little too old for him?" I died when I saw that, bro. I appreciate that. I needed that. I woke up this morning to that tweet. So
he doesn't endorse women over the age of 23 usually. So
right.
He's a lot like Mr. Reagan in that sense.
What are you talking?
What are you talking about, man?
He's like,
I'm just saying.
I'm currently dating is in fact 23, but we won't talk about that.
Just saying, Mr. Reagan likes him young and hot. That's all I'm saying.
I guess there's nothing wrong with that.
Accurate.
No lies detected. So guys, real quick. So normally I want to give a shout out to Mephisto at Mephisto's Movie Reviews. Normally we redirect to the Real McCoy podcast because it happens right after our show. However, because Brian is doing a very special birthday live stream with Shane, and they're going to be talking about the Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump. They're going to get super political. We decided to throw caution to the wind and redirect to them instead of Mephisto. But we still love Mephisto, still love the Real McCoy podcast. So if you guys want to check him out, he's going to be going live after our show. But we're going to be redirecting you to Brian's stream instead. So
Yeah, we decided to get canceled today. So
Awesome.
Yep.
let's go. We
Wanna get
lost
canceled.
like 37 subscribers last week because of the political stuff. So we're just like, you know what? Let's just go all in. Let's see how many we can lose in 1 week.
Let's go.
No
Exactly.
problem.
Do it.
Well, you know, we're only like 2 weeks away from the actual
Right.
presidential election.
It's a
so
bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it
Yep.
works out for
Let's
him.
see if
Yeah,
it works out for him.
So far, it
Exactly.
has not been working.
Well, you know, with Timcast IRL shutting down, there's now a vacuum that needs to be filled. So maybe the Popcast guys can step into that.
Yeah,
And
but
we're
my
gonna talk
graphics
about that
card
in a
might
second.
break.
Yeah, graphics card, the downfall of every major news organization. Real quick, guys, we got a goal for 20 new members for this stream. So we already had a couple of gifted gifted memberships in the chat. We're going to get to those in a second, but this is our goal to hit 20 in this one episode. So thank you for that. And also don't forget to clip and comment on the episode. So if you guys disagree with something that we have to say, leave it as a comment on the replay. Or if you liked a particular moment, like Brian making a fool of himself or something like that, clip that stuff and it will show up automatically on our channel so people can see it and enjoy it. So your work will not go unappreciated. Also, guys, let's give a shout out to our top donators. So we, of course, have Scotty Dub at number 1 for the most recent $500 super chat. But, guys, last week, Scotty Dub dropped a hundo on the stream.
Wow.
He dethroned Brian G yet again as our top contributor for the year. So, Scotty Dub, really appreciate you. Thank you for your generosity. Brian G, also appreciate you. Thank you for your generosity. You are number 2 right now, right behind Scotty Dub. And, of course, William Forbus taking up 3rd place with his $120 super chat. And Mexican Iron Man, who is our most consistent donator. Really appreciate you, Mexican Iron Man. And our top gifters, the queen of gifted memberships, Jillian N., Bob Dorsey, Sam Schwager, Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg. Guys, thank you so much for your support and also for sharing all that stuff with the chat by gifting the memberships. If you do get a gifted membership, be sure to go to our main channel and check out the members only live stream that has all of our membership stuff in it. And you will definitely get a lot out of that. And Eric Winberg, speaking of gifted memberships, he has gifted his obligatory One Salty Nerd Podcast membership every day. Thank you, Mr. Winberg. Always appreciate you. And the queen, not to be outdone, Jillian N. drops 10
Nice.
Salty Nerd Podcast
Thank you.
memberships, bringing us right up to our midway point goal. So we just need to get 9 more of those things before we hit our goal, and Dutch Butters will show everyone his feet. And so
No, it will not. Nobody wants to see that.
What?
Mm-mm.
that's how we got our top donators, Mr. Reagan, just threatening to
Is that
show feet pics from Dutch Butters.
I am subscribed to your OnlyFans,
Yes,
Dutch. Mr. Butters.
Yes.
Oh God.
Can I
it's not
just show something real
it's not
quick?
the same Dutch Butters, Mr. Reagan. Yes, go ahead.
I am. Oh, isn't it? Oh, damn. Okay, my bad. I'm in Southeast Asia at the moment in an undisclosed location, and I bought this. Since we're on a what do you call it? A pop culture.
You can buy people there, I heard.
Check that out. Yeah, you
Oh.
probably can.
Superman
Huh?
ring.
Superman ring.
Ring. It's like $15. Fantastic.
I
very
thought
proud
you
of
were
it.
pointing to
Symbol for hope.
a bionic knuckle or transgender knuckle.
No,
or
no.
something like that.
Transgender. No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I bought
There
a
are-
woman's
there are-
hand and had it transplanted.
You can have that kind of work done.
I
No,
bought
what's
a person.
You could buy people. I'm pretty sure. I've not tried it, but no, it's there are lady boys here. It's freaky and horrible. Definitely the guy downstairs got a prostitute last night. I definitely saw that happen. So it is a strange place, but the Superman pinky ring, I'm quite happy with it.
Superman, not just a ring, a pinky ring. So it's like the
Yeah, well,
mafioso version.
That's just how it fits. That's just the finger that it fits onto. Yeah.
All right. So we only have Mr. Reagan for a brief amount of time because it is 1 a.m. where he's at, and he's doing us a favor by being here. So he's only going to be here till the top of the hour. But now that we have him, so originally we like to do our top news story at the top of the hour, going into the second hour. But since Mr. Reagan is not going to be here for that, and I really want his opinion on this story in particular, We're going to be talking about the Tim Pool very public meltdown that just happened this week. And for those of you who don't know, so like Tim Pool, he's a kind of independent journalist, at least he started off that way. And he has since built a YouTube media empire based around his morning news commentary and also his very popular live stream Timcast IRL, which has been kind of like at the forefront of like the YouTube like new media news factory, I guess you'd call it. And we have this episode that came out this week where it was like, this is the last Timcast IRL. And Tim Pool basically went live and spent 2 hours basically complaining about his organization. And the only reason he went live is because he had a guest out there, Dave Landau, who, they flew him out, they put him up. He was supposed to be on Timcast IRL, and they were like, well, it'd be kind of shitty to just cancel the show and like have like, Dave Landau come out for nothing. So he went live just to have Dave Landau, get his screen time. But literally, like, they spent the entire episode just talking about how Tim Pool didn't want to do Timcast IRL anymore, how he was like, at the end of his rope, he hated all the people who worked for him. Like, he was just like overworked. Yeah. He wasn't having fun doing it anymore. And keep in mind that this is like 2 weeks before the election, right? At a time where he is hitting his peak ratings and people are actually depending on him to deliver news commentary and stuff like that. And it seemed to me, and by the way, link to all this stuff in the description of this video that we're going to be talking about. It seemed to me to be kind of like a weird combination of both pity party and complete disregard for his audience. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I know, like I've been watching Timcast IRL since it started, way back when it was just in his New Jersey apartment with Adam Krigler and stuff like that. And I've always really enjoyed Tim's live stream more so than his morning news stuff, because he just rambles to hit that 20-minute mark so he can have multiple mid-roll ads in there. Like, he doesn't actually say much. He could probably make those videos 5 minutes long if he really wanted to. But he basically spent a big portion of the show talking about how much more money he makes off of those morning lives or morning news bits, and how much easier it is because he doesn't need like a staff. Apparently he has a staff of like 30 people. And, Brian, you and I have been to Pop Culture Crisis, which is in the old Timcast Castle. The old Cast Castle, which ironically enough, he was doing this live stream from because his new one had a meltdown with their central computer. Right. But we know his they have drivers on staff who will like pick you up from your hotel and kind of chauffeur you to and from the Cast Castle. There are booking agents. There are people who do like the editing and the graphic design and stuff like that. But it seemed like Tim was very frustrated with the people that he'd hired, because he's tended to hire, number one, fans, and number two, friends of his. And so like they weren't necessarily the best people for the job. He just kind of like hired them because they were quick and easy. And he talked about how there were like lots of leakers and doxers and stuff with him on the staff, people who didn't go above and beyond what they were paid to do, which is why there were so many equipment failures. And in the wake of all this, Tim basically disbands his news organization, right? And so Hannah Claire, who's a very popular member of Timcast IRL, like, she lost her job overnight. Luke Rukowski also is no longer doing Timcast. And the quartering came in and basically hired these two people he's like, well, if not working for Tim anymore, come work for me.
I like how he made a video. It's like, I'm poaching Tim Pool's employees.
Yeah.
I love Jeremy because he's just so straight up, dude.
Yeah. He basically put it out there. He's like, hey, if you got fired from Tim, come work for me, because Jeremy's angling to have what Tim does, right? Like, he wants to do that. And it's kind of ironic because Tim tried to pull off his own coffee shop, couldn't get it off the ground. Tim also, I think a big part of Tim's problem is that he's too all over the place. Like, he was trying to do music and entertainment and all this other stuff. And it's like, dude, just stick to your lane, do that really well. And then once that's on coast mode, then branch out and do some other stuff. But he's
already on coast mode, right? I mean, the dude's
no. Well, like, his big thing was that he's overworked, and that's one of the reasons why he hated doing Timcast IRL, is because he was like, I'm spending way too much time doing this stuff when I could be watching sunsets. Like,
I mean,
that's his big thing.
it's his business, right? It's his company.
Well,
I mean, if he wants to dial back, I mean, I'm not defending what he did here, but it's his right to dial things back if he wants to.
But I mean, here's the thing, and we're going to get into this in a second once I throw it to you guys, is that as someone who produces not only live streams but also podcasts and YouTube channels, and like we're all in the YouTube game. We know the ins and outs of like how hard or easy it is to like hire people, fire people, produce a live stream, produce a YouTube video, all this other stuff.
It's hard.
A lot of Tim's complaints were stuff. It's like, dude, we as like little YouTubers who, don't get a fraction of the views or super chats you do, who don't have any of the funding that you do,
right?
Pull this off way more efficiently than you do. So why is that?
On a daily
why are you
basis.
complaining about it? Yeah,
He's
on a
like,
daily.
I work 10 hours a day. I'm like, what, bitch? Is that a joke? I work 20 hours a day sometimes. Get out of here.
Yeah, and also it's like doing what? It's like, okay, if you prep for the IRL stream, just hire a producer to handle all the other logistical. Like this stream right now is a perfect example of that, where I had a guest lined up. She was a great guest, booked her months in advance. She was getting married, so like I had to negotiate like the right time and stuff like that. Checked in with her at the beginning of the week. It's like, hey, we still good to go? She's like, yeah, everything's good. Then last minute, had a family issue pop up. It's like, okay, now we don't have a guest. And so it's like, that's the type of stuff a producer deals with, right? Also, another thing that IRL did that was kind of revolutionary is like they refused to have telepresence guests. So people couldn't Zoom in, they couldn't Skype in, they had to be in the studio. And that is a good policy because it fosters really good conversations. But at the same time, you don't need every Timcast IRL to have like a special guest. It's like do maybe 1 or 2 guests a week, keep it easy. You don't have to fill that space because they had a good group, when Ian wasn't on anyway. But they had a good group to, kind of like discuss politics and issues and things like that. And but most of it, the thing that really got me, and I'll just say this before we get to the panel's take on it. The thing that got me about this whole last IRL thing, which was total clickbait, by the way. But the thing that got me about it was the complete disregard for his own audience. Because like Tim made it very clear that he didn't give a shit about the people who watched the show, about the people who subscribed to the memberships or donated in super chats, who had been with the show for like since the beginning and really loved, tuning in every night and getting their news from it and stuff like that. He just made it clear it was all about him. And I feel like there's a fine line that creators have to walk where it's like, yes, you have to balance work-life stuff. You have to balance your own mental health. You have to do what you're passionate about. But at the same time, there is a certain obligation to the audience that must be addressed, right? Where it's like, these are the people who you do this for. These are the people who reward you for your hard work and stuff like that. And what I got from that last IRL stream, quote unquote, is that Tim Pool is on such a high horse that he just doesn't care anymore about the people who actually put him in that position. And he's like, dude, I could do my morning news program and like, still make millions of dollars and not have to worry about shit. And I'm like, well, if you piss off all of your people, they're not going to show up and you're not going to get that ad revenue,
right.
So, and especially when you have people like Jeremy from The Quartering, who's now a direct competitor for like that, throughout the day news cycle. You got people like Mr. Reagan, who is a far more interesting news analyst than Tim Pool ever could hope to be, at least in my opinion. So I want to throw this to you, Mr. Reagan, because you are in that world. You know a lot of the same people that Tim Pool knows and stuff like that. So what was your take on this very public struggle session / meltdown / pity party that Tim Pool threw for himself this week?
Honestly, I tried to kind of avoid it. I had to watch some stuff for this show, but look, I've never been on Tim's show. Tim knows who I am. We've talked before, but he doesn't really. I don't know. He never had me on his show, which I never really understood. I mean, there's been moments when I've been in the news, and he just doesn't care. I don't think he likes me for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I've known people who worked with him, like worked for him, and have actually gone to him and said, can you have Mr. Reagan on the show? He's in the news for this or that or whatever. And it was just like, no, he doesn't want to have you. I'm like, all right, fine. But from what I've heard from his employees, he's kind of I don't want to call him a narcissist or anything, but he's just, he's a star. He is a star. I mean, legitimate. Like, people love him. They watch his show. They just absolutely love him. Personally, he's not really my kind of YouTuber. There are certain people that I like to watch, certain personalities I like to watch. I never really liked Tim Pool, but lots of people do, and I really respect that. I do respect that. But like with his staff, there was a lot of like non-paid interns and that kind of thing going on, and like a lot of the people that work for him, the rumor is, like, from me, like that I got from people that worked for him, was that he just didn't seem to appreciate them. Even though they were working their asses off for him, he didn't seem to appreciate it. And this meltdown kind of confirmed that. He was just like, it's everybody's fault but mine.
Mhm.
And I just kind of felt like, dude, you know, maybe have a little humility. You know, he's kind of this thing where he's just like, I'm a god, you all work for me, and you just haven't been pulling your weight, okay? I need you to, like, carry the god stones for me on your little backs and do all the work for me and all this kind of thing. And at the end of the day, it's his show. Like, he needs to hire the right people for the job. And if he hasn't hired the right people for the job, maybe they need to go. He needs to hire some other people. I don't know. You know, but I don't know. Sitting there and complaining about that stuff on your own show seems, I don't know. It's just kind of, it's kind of
Cringy, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a bad look. I don't really have anything against Tim Pool personally. You know, he's all right. You know, he's got to figure out what he wants to do for his own show. It is difficult, I would say. It's very difficult to run a company that big. And, you know, when you're the star of something, like if you're the talent for a project like that, you only have so much time in the day, and your most valuable thing that you can do with your time is to be on air. Like, the more he's on air, the more money he makes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird to me that he's like cutting. That's the thing he's cutting. He's cutting his airtime. Like, that's, to me, is bizarre. Like, that's the thing that's going to make you the most money. He's like, oh, I make so much money on this, I don't need the rest of it. Well, make the rest of it better. You know, make the rest of it more lucrative. Why would you cut that? I don't know. It's a weird decision for me. I don't know. I think it kind of flipped him out that he had that whole like Russian $10 million thing that he had to deal with, and I don't know what's going on with the guy. I feel a little bit bad for him, if I'm honest. You know, it's tough. Like I said, it's tough. I understand streamlining. I almost have no people that I work with at all, ever. I just do everything myself. Obviously, I've worked with you guys in the past. I think I'm going to start working with you guys, I think, like next week again. Trying to convince Kadish to work with me again after I've been such an asshole to him and just dismissed him for years. But no. I kind of, you know, I wasn't doing so many videos recently, so I'm like, I guess I'll just edit them myself. But I'm going to work with Kadish again. But yeah, I don't really have a big team, and that's the primary reason, is because once you have a big team, you are locked into the stuff you're doing, and you have to rely on a lot of other people. And it does get tough. I mean, it's a real business. You know, my father, I grew up with my father creating a business, essentially grew this business throughout my life. And I watched him do it. And, you know, it was a struggle. And he was stuck in one place for, you know, his entire life. And for me, I you know, once I had a YouTube channel, I'm like, do I really want a studio? Do I really want employees? Like, I'd much rather just be able to travel and do my YouTube channel from anywhere. So streamlining that for me gave me a lot of freedom. So for me, making a ton of money was never the goal. It was always having an interesting life. And, you know, thanks to Elon Musk, I've had a very interesting couple of months.
Yes, indeed. Him retweeting your Kamala parody was a big deal. But you know, I just want to couch this. I know that I might have gone a little bit hard on Tim in this intro, but I really do like Tim Pool. I feel like he's stronger when he's in that kind of like talk show format where it's not just like him having to monologue. Because when I watch his news bits, like, it's almost painful sometimes, because he does the Trump weave, where he'll just go off on these tangents and then like eventually come back. But he always hits that 20-minute mark, and you know that he's trying to stretch that each of these stories out to 20 minutes just for those mid-roll ads so that he can make that money. And, you know, no shade on that, you know, make your money, Tim. But I feel like when he's like holding court and he's got like guests and co-hosts and stuff like that, he's far more entertaining and easy to listen to than when he's like just doing it on his own. I think that's what made Timcast work, is that like he was a very strong kind of like host. And then all these other people just kind of added different things. But like, you know, if Ian started going off on like a weird tangent, he'd slap him down and bring it back around and stuff like that. So like, I always felt like IRL was the perfect format for what he wanted to do. But I want to throw this to Brian, because Brian, one of the big things that kind of the catalyst for like this big temper tantrum that he threw was the fact that, so, you know, we here at the Salty Nerd Studio, in each one of our studios, we have a central computer that does all like the live streaming, and like, you know, we feed the cameras through it and stuff like that. So the computer is the heart of a studio.
Right.
But I guess Tim Pool's studio, with all of its millions of dollars and 30 employees and stuff like that, they couldn't figure out how to swap out a graphics card that basically malfunctioned on their central computer.
Right.
And so he's like, what am I paying all you people for? What am I spending all this money on a new studio for if we have to go back to our old studio? And, you know, big shout out to Brett Desovic, who's been on the live stream before. Like Brian, you and I have both been on his show, Pop Culture Crisis, with Mary Morgan. He's awesome. She's awesome. Like, I've never had a bad experience with the Timcast crew. No. So like I and also I was a big fan of Hannah and Phil Labonte, and, you know, Ian. Like, as annoyed as I am with Ian, like I still, like, you know, I think he's a cool guy, right? I just don't like watching him on a news show. But like this whole idea here that like basically everyone that Tim had surrounded himself with is the problem, and this meltdown of a computer was the thing that broke him, I thought was kind of interesting. So I wanted to get your take on that, Brian.
Yeah, first off, if everyone around you is the problem, guess what, dude? You're the problem. That's how it works. If everyone around you is the problem, that means you're the problem. I'm sorry. I like Tim and I appreciate his hustle, but he went really hard on that stream, and those guys were basically begging for their jobs. And I'm sorry, that's just effed up on live stream. He was it just stinked of entitlement. First off, every computer has a graphics card. In case you're not a tech guy, every single computer has a graphics card. Mm-hmm. The graphics card might not be powerful enough to run a show, but you don't need a huge graphics card to run a show. You just need a pretty good one. I have 2 computers in my home studio, and if my graphics card expired, I'm just going to swap out with one of the computers that has a graphics card, or my kid's computer, or whatever. Look, it could have been an easy fix. Tim got mad that someone else didn't foresee that they needed a graphics card. At the fact that there's no backup to your main computer, and you make that much money. I mean, dude, have you seen his super chats in that pathetic live stream alone? He was making buku bucks, thousands and thousands of dollars, enough to buy like 17 graphics cards.
He should probably have a couple in the storage shelf, right?
Straight up, there should be one of those
17 graphics cards and a meal from Five Guys,
right? And a meal from Five Guys, bro. Look, you should have one of those, you know, those old school elementary school metal cabinets. Odin knows what I'm talking about. The one where they keep all the supplies. Have one of those and just have like 6 graphics cards, a couple processors, some RAM. Just have a whole computer ready to go. You make that much money. You spend 2 years trying to build a coffee shop that I don't understand why it takes so long to build a coffee shop, but I'm not going to get on that. You spent all this time and all this money doing stuff you didn't need to do, but you didn't buy a backup graphics card? Mm-hmm. Are you kidding?
Yeah, but is it Tim's job to make sure that the graphics cards are in stock in the office?
Look, bro,
that would be his office manager's job, right? I don't know.
I don't know if they have an office manager, because like he was also complaining to the poor guy sitting there begging for his job. Basically, he's like, "How long did it take to get this projector up?" He pointed to something off screen, right? The guy's like, "Well, it's up now." He goes, "Yeah, how long did it take? A couple months." He goes, "Well, why did it take a couple months?" Well, I put the order in, and stuff never came.
Is Tim one of these guys who has to have his fingers in everything and control everything? And
it must be that. It's like what I would say is like, look, you got to trim the fat, not kill them, not remove the employees that are actually doing the work, but like, who's signing the checks? Who has the company credit card where the guy couldn't put the projector up? I'm getting in the weeds here, but dude, you're the boss. So if you're working 16 hours a day and you don't like it, well, kill the skating crap, kill the coffee shop, kill the streaming vans, kill the double studios, kill the stuff that is taking your time and not making a penny for anyone around you. Kill all this stuff that is taking your time away from your quote unquote family you want to start, and do your job and then do your family. Like, if you don't have time for a coffee shop, don't start a coffee shop. Plus, who starts a brick-and-mortar coffee shop in 2024?
I would disagree with you slightly.
I mean, but dude, he's complaining that he can't do IRL because he's too busy.
No, but the point is, Kadish is right. It's not like, or I don't know if maybe it was Mr. Butters. I can't remember. But somebody made the point that like, you really are relying on somebody else to do stuff. And if somebody keeps on, effing it up, maybe get somebody else.
Yeah, well, let that
Tim
person
might have a
go.
problem. Yeah, I think Tim might have a problem with firing people. Which
Well,
is
I don't think he does, bro, because he went on a live stream with poor Dave Landau. And by the way, Dave Landau has now been on two gigantic right-wing streams that have just imploded at some point. But he has Dave Landau on, and he has his employees on, and they're basically begging for their jobs on live stream while he chastises them. It's so cringy.
The best
I'm not going to give
Tim.
Tim. I appreciate his thoughts, but I'm not going to give Tim any credit here. That stream was straight up cringe, unnecessary, and I felt sorry for everyone that was in the studio.
Listen, here's the best part of the whole thing. Brian, you're on the spectrum, right? Are you on the spectrum?
F?
That was a great part of the show. I loved
when,
it.
when Landau just straight up asked him,
He asked
are
him,
you
"What's
on
on the
the
spectrum?"
spectrum?
That was funny.
It's like I didn't know that was a thing you could ask people. It changed my world.
I feel like Dave Landau can ask anyone anything. So,
I'm
Dave's great.
gonna start using it every week. Mr. Reagan, are you on the spectrum? Are you one of these autistic fucks
it's one of those
who's gonna
questions
like
where you're like,
drugs?
I don't know.
Well, technically, everyone's on the spectrum, right? It's just
it's the
different levels of the spectrum. Yeah, it's the spectrum.
Oh my God.
Yeah, which
but-
spectrum are you talking about?
But Mr. Reagan, to kind of Brian's point, like the whole part about putting on a show, right, is that you have a producer, right? You hire a producer. If you look at kind of the Daily Wire stuff, you have Jeremy Boring, who's behind the scenes dealing with all the stuff, while the talent just focuses on performing on the show. And so I think Tim's big issue is he was always his own producer. He'd never delegate to someone to kind of handle the logistics of putting on the show so that Tim could just focus on show prep and then show
Isn't
up
his
and do his
girlfriend
thing.
the producer?
I don't think so. I think she's a member of his company. So she oversees a lot of the financial stuff and things of that nature. But in terms of the IRL should have had its own dedicated producer, right? They should have been the guy coordinating
absolutely. To me,
Yeah.
if you have that kind of money, why would you ever do that stuff yourself?
Yeah, and I think it was. I think it was just because, I think it's just because Tim is a micromanager and he's a little bit of a control freak.
Mhm.
He wants to do things in a specific way, and he either wasn't able to find someone who could produce the show in the way he wanted, or he wasn't willing to find someone like that.
What's crazy is
Brett annoyed me about Tim Pool.
Brett, who's right next to him, is very competent with all that stuff.
Yeah.
He could have swapped out that card and handled the producing, no problem.
I'm sure.
I
There's
was
a
there
lot
in
of
the
people
studio. I
on
watched him in
his team
person.
That probably were.
Go ahead, Mr. Reagan.
Sorry, Mr. Reagan.
So he started out as a leftist. He was a lefty guy, right?
He was a Bernie bro.
I think, right?
Bernie
Yeah.
bro. Yeah.
So I think what happened was when he started out, he made a lot of friends at YouTube because he was doing some pretty interesting stuff, and the YouTube staff I think really liked him, and so he kind of got in with them good. If you're in good with the YouTube people, they will actually help you out with the algorithm, and if they don't like you, you are effed. Right, I was effed. My friend Elijah was effed. I had a few people who got really screwed over by the YouTube staff, but he was always helped out by the YouTube staff.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that he ever really understood that. And to Tim's credit, he's very good at what he does. He got a lot of fans. There's a lot of people that love him, that still love him, right? And he sort of evolved from a leftist to, quasi right wing, whatever.
I'd say libertarian.
Yeah, libertarian. But and so that's a lot of people respect him for that, and he's got an interesting perspective because he was on the left for so long. But I think those friendships and that positive association with the company that he was working for, YouTube, or working with YouTube, really helped him out a lot. And I don't think he ever really appreciated that. There's so many people out there that could have been as successful or more successful than Tim Pool, but Tim Pool had this sort of kind of lucky thing going where he was buddy with the YouTube people, and that really exploded his channel. And he's never really, I don't think he's really ever recognized. He's never been humble enough to recognize that that's a huge part of the reason for his success. But yeah, that's the only real problem I've ever had with Tim Pool is he doesn't really recognize that he doesn't seem to appreciate the fact that he was really lucky in his life.
Yeah.
He seems
I mean,
to think
I don't-
YouTube definitely plays favorites, but I want to throw this to Mr. Butters. Dutch. So we've had Adam Krigler on the show before. We know Adam. We've talked to him about, his time at Timcast and stuff like that. And it was really interesting to get to see his reaction to like this whole thing, because he went live a couple times. He actually watched the last IRL stream and commented on it and stuff like that. And it's kind of interesting to see different people's takes on this, because it's all universally kind of anti-Tim. So I wanted to get your take on, like, what did you think of like the last Timcast IRL in general and people's reaction to it?
Surprised to no one. I'm not really a big, huge Tim Pool fan. I don't really watch a lot of his stuff. But what I'm getting from all of this stuff is that he feels overworked, and he needs to marry his lady that he hired on the show and knocked up. I don't know what their relationship is, but apparently he's probably doing some things they weren't supposed to do before this relationship was out there. And he needs to hire a CEO and have somebody run the business side of things while he stays in front of the camera. I mean that's pretty much the bottom line for me. The dude's obviously overworked and overstressed, and he's got a lot of stuff on his brain, and he's got a huge ego, and I think all that stuff is inside his head is fighting, and he needs to prioritize things and probably dial his roll down a little bit. So I mean,
he's opening too many skate parks and trying to open coffee shops and doing music videos and trying to do comedy.
How long have we been trying to open our coffee shop? 2 years?
Yeah.
Like you're yelling at the guy across the table that like just started working for you less than 2 years ago about how you are failing at opening your brick and mortar coffee shop. Like, come on.
Yeah.
The problem is not. The problem is not, though,
sorry.
over the fact that he's doing so many things. It's the problem is he's doing so many things while trying to micromanage every single one of them. Like, because he has the money and he has the means to be able to get all of these projects going, and whatever the issues might be with the coffee shop, those can be dealt with. But the fact is, he doesn't want to delegate anything to anybody else because he is a control freak, and it is destroying, honestly, it's destroying any capabilities that he has to grow this business any further at this point.
And that brings me to you, Odin, because even though Salty Saturday is the second biggest live stream on YouTube, you work for the first biggest live stream on YouTube, Friday Night Tights, and you have some insight into the inner workings of that. But like, if you look at someone like Gary and even someone like Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, these are guys, they're just normal guys like us, yet they have built like their own kind of mini empires. Gary has, X-Ray Girl as his producer. He has, like when they came here to the Salty Nerd studios, like they had people in the background doing like chat moderation, like a bunch of other stuff. So like he has like his own little group, but it was like maybe 3 or 4 people at most, working in the background while like he's just focused on doing the live stream and wrangling the cats like every good like host does. And so like if you look at someone like Gary and then compare him to Tim Pool and what Tim Pool was complaining about, it feels like Tim Pool has no idea what he's doing, and Gary on a much smaller level, but just as popular in terms of like his live stream, is just killing it, and with like a fraction of the overhead and a fraction of the frustration. So I want to get your take on this. What was your read on Tim Pool's kind of like public meltdown and how it compares to other shows that you're involved with?
The best part about all of that is, we talk about how excellent the things that Gary puts out are, and yet even Gary and everyone else on Friday Night Tights are willing to admit we're all idiots. Like, it's like we're all special in our own way, and yet we can figure this stuff out, right? But that is the big difference, is that he is willing to delegate certain things over. And guess what? Sometimes people make mistakes, and those have to be dealt with, just like any leader has to deal with. And so that is something that any person in that position should be ready to take. And honestly, there are so many things that we can go after him here for, because honestly, he made a ton of mistakes just by everything he was saying on that stream. But to me, the biggest faux pas, the worst thing that he did, the biggest thing that I cannot get over is how unprofessional he was while having a guest that he flew out to be on his show to talk about stuff, obviously, that he had an idea of what he was going to talk about beforehand, just to then have to then sit there and listen to Tim, like, for lack of a better
Play
expression,
therapist.
I don't like to, to complain nonstop the entire show. Basically, yeah, exactly. To play therapist, try to get jokes in, try to keep it up, try to
Dude, he was working his butt off, dude.
Yeah, like you don't get to the, are you on the spectrum? Unless you're like, okay, I'm running out of material here.
Yeah.
I gotta turn it on you a little bit, saying, all right, man, you kind of you flew me out here to just complain to me about your problems. This is not really a professional thing to do, and that's the worst thing to me. It's so unprofessional for him to do that with a guest on air. Like if it had happened where the guest was canceled because of a mistake someone else made, okay, I can at least understand why the show is like no one else there, and so then you're venting your emotions. Even that's unprofessional because you're the boss, you're the leader, you're supposed to set the tone, and that's not a good thing. But it's even worse when you do that with a guest that is supposed to be there for other reasons. And you go into some of those little things. Like the other bad thing about it too is like it's all over this graphics card, and I'm like, bro, you realize that most laptops today can run the show that he is running. Like any computer that has Thunderbolt 3 or 4, you just need one connection that can hook up all the cameras, all the things like that, and a computer signal and a Wi-Fi signal and whatever it is. And guess what? You can run your show. So the fact that, as was being mentioned, he didn't have a backup system, which could even be something as small as a laptop to be able to do something like that. And if you need to cut things down where it's like, hey, we can only get 2 of the cameras working, you make it work, right?
But you can do it with a Microsoft Surface, bro. It's not that hard.
No, like, and like, it just honestly is the thing that just I keep coming back to, and it just always, it really turned it off to like really just made me ticked off at him in general. And I think that he'll probably end up losing a lot of members because of it. I think is because he brought someone out and then just completely wasted their time for lack of a better expression.
He not only wasted their time, but he was blatantly disrespectful of his audience.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, so the title of the live stream was pure clickbait. I feel like there was a part of Tim who was like, okay, I'm going to capitalize off of what I'm feeling right now. I'm going to threaten to, end this show, and that's going to get me a lot of ratings. But like, just where he was talking about how, yeah, the show makes a lot of money, but it's not worth the hassle. I make more money, and have an easier time just doing my news stories at the beginning of the day, blah, blah, blah. It was just kind of like, dude, like the people who tune into your evening show, like religiously, who don't bother with like your morning show, it's like, what are you telling these people?
It also drives his morning show though. Like like you can have the live stream is what drives the rest of his channel. It's always been that way. Like I can just tune in myself. And
I don't think, because he did start off doing like the multiple news stories per day, and then it morphed into like him doing his live streams type stuff.
I mean, he gets the most amount of love and shares and all that with his.
Well, also, and I want to throw this to Mr. Reagan and Odin again, between the two of you. So like, this is a guy. He started off doing this show in his New Jersey apartment with his roommate, and now like he interviewed a former president of the United States, Donald Trump. He's interviewed some of the most influential political figures in Congress, right? He has made inroads with celebrity, like, the Kanye West thing that he had on his show that was like, was absolutely batshit insane crazy. Like he's had legitimate people on his show that shape the course of the nation, right? And he's on there bitching about shutting it down because of a graphics card. This is a live stream that morphed into one of the most legitimate news shows on YouTube, right? And here he is because he had a bad night. And trust me, we've all been there. But we don't go live and bitch about it and complain about it and accuse other people of being the problem, right? We tried, like Odin said, it like there is a certain level of professionalism that you need to have, even on YouTube, right? This isn't like a Zoom call where it's like nobody's watching it except the people on the call.
It reminded me of one of those thoughts that gets on Twitch and complains to everybody about not sending in enough.
Yeah, not getting enough tips. Yeah,
and they're gonna have they have a temper tantrum and threaten to quit.
Yeah,
it's like,
come on, guys.
but Mr. Reagan, like a lot of the people in the field who've started off their own news shows. They don't get interviews with former presidents and stuff like that. What's your take on Tim just being like, oh yeah, I've achieved so much with this live stream, but it's stupid and I'm just going to end it because I don't like it.
It is the problem. It just comes back to the fact that he just takes on everything himself. He's got this thing where he's like, I'm the guy, right? I'm the guy. I'm everything. I'm Tim Cast. I'm everything. And it is a team thing. And you've got to give responsibility to a lot of the other people on your team. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. Otherwise, you're never going to be as professional as you can. And he doesn't seem to want to do that for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, I don't know him personally, so I can't give you an insight there. But I don't know why he wouldn't do that. To me, that's the obvious thing to do. He's obviously made it a very professional show in terms of like, filming it and everything like that. But I look, he's got to do the show the way he wants to do it. That's the trouble with YouTube. Like, the great thing about social media is that it democratized fame. It used to be that you would have to go get a degree in broadcasting and then people would let you work at their news station or whatever. Now you can get people who want to analyze the news or want to bring you the news or whatever it might be. And if they are popular with the people, they will become famous. They will become successful. They will make money in spite of the fact that nobody, like the gatekeepers, didn't let them in. And I think that's a great thing. But in this particular case, this guy got too popular for maybe what he was ready to be able to deal with. And that's, that's just the problem that comes with being too successful sometimes. Some people just don't know how to do it. I've many times, and this is not just with social media, in business as well. There are people whose product or whose service just grow too big too fast. I mean, you hear them talking about this on Shark Tank all the time. I used to watch Shark Tank. They used to say, look, this person's business grew too fast and they didn't know how to deal with that, right? They didn't know how to scale. And so it just collapsed, right? This happens with tech companies. This happens with all kinds of different companies. I think Tim Pool did a really good job for the most part, but probably, it's the same problem that we keep talking about on the show. He was too much of a micromanager and he was unwilling to give up control. And that's really the only way that he could have grown any bigger or been any, just step back a little bit and let other people handle some stuff.
All right. I want to ask Brian this question, then I want to ask Odin the same question and get both their responses about this. One of the big things I've been seeing in response to Tim Pool's kind of like public meltdown was that it had a lot to do with the tenant media controversy. And we talked about tenant media on a previous episode of the live stream, where basically Lauren Chen and her company were being financed by people from Russia Today. And so like it was like Russian interference and they didn't properly tell people like Dave Rubin, Tim Pool, all these people that signed on with them. And they were basically being funneled like Russian money. And this all came out with Biden's DOJ. Brian, do you think that because Tim Pool basically said like, hey, I didn't know about any of this. I was the victim here.
Right.
The DOJ said I was a victim. Do you think this had anything to do with his meltdown?
That's fascinating. Imagine if, the money, the Russian money, it dried up and now he's got to work a little harder. Maybe there's some less money coming in and like the stress is, I mean, it makes sense. Like the tenant money did dry up, right? Like he's not getting that money anymore that he was getting.
It was basically a syndication deal, but I don't think it was like the bulk of like his income.
So the fact that like there is money and we don't know how much it was, right?
I think it was like $1 million or something like that.
That's a lot of goddamn money. Like,
not compared to what his other shows make.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. So, I mean, I just think it's interesting. Like the tenant thing dried up for him. That's got to add stress. He did have that tweet right afterwards where he was, and I'm sure it was sarcasm, where he was like, I think the Ukraine war is a good idea. And he's trying to get the DOJ off his back.
He does like to troll on Twitter a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's entirely possible that money was an added stressor for him. And I just think the guy is doing too much. And I think he has a very hard time managing people because he wants to be involved in everything. And he's probably not a great manager. And when things start to get rough, Cast Castle, I think the last video they put up was like 6 months ago and it got like 1,500 views. That's not great, dude. A lot of his projects that aren't IRL, they don't do as well. Obviously Pop Culture Crisis does well, but a lot of the other projects, like they're pretty much canceled or they weren't doing very well or whatever. I can see being frustrated, putting a lot of effort into something that didn't pan out. And if you did that like 5 or 6 times, you know, in a 5-year period and like things don't pan out, and the only thing that's panning out is your original thing, I could see that being extremely frustrated, but he's taking it out on the wrong people. And I think it was super cringe to do that on a live stream with poor Dave Landau and the employees begging for their jobs. Crazy.
And weird. You'd think they just have a meeting.
Yeah.
Just have a meeting, dude. Like,
Yeah, it was a public therapy session. But I want to throw this to Odin. So Odin, I know that, you know, a lot of people are saying it was him losing the tenant media money. Like, I don't think that was a big factor in this. But one of the interesting things to me was that after the dust was starting to settle on this and people were, he was kind of facing this backlash, he basically came out and said, oh, like, I want to start a family, I want to get married, and I want to have a kid and all this other stuff. And he tried to like reframe it as, I'm doing this for my own personal mental health and happiness, and therefore it's okay for me to fire all these people and do like a public struggle session. What's your take on that? Do you think he was like earnest in saying that, or was this more of like a CYA moment for him?
Yeah, honestly, it felt like his brain just not being able to process the fact that he did something that he should not have done in all the things that he was saying and in the struggle session that he was having, and then decided, hey, well, since I'm already speaking about all the things, might as well be open and honest about this thing too, right? Or at least indicate as much, right? Because what happens at the beginning of the very next show, right? It's like, oh, by the way, I'm engaged and having a child, right? So it's kind of like we looked at his breakdown in this capacity, and so I think that he became a lot more of an open book in certain ways. The thing that like just really bothers me about what he was going after, though, was the fact that he made it seem like there were people who were like freeloading, who weren't doing their job, and so without really naming names. And so all we know is that by the next day, SCNR is done. Hannah Claire is gone, and so that's like the only thing that we really knew from it. Like, so I don't know of anyone else that was let go by name that we have like knowledge of necessarily that was like on the day-to-day doing stuff for him. But the fact that it's like, of all the people, Hannah Claire is the one who goes, like, it's like, I'm sorry, she doesn't come across as someone who's going to be the one in charge of a graphics card. So it's like, if that was like the main complaint, it's like, okay, what does she have to do with that? The only other thing I could think of is, my question would be, what were the numbers for SCNR News? I can't imagine they were great. That would be the only thing that would make sense for him to say, SCNR is gone. And I guess her primary role was that, but she was also a great co-host. And so that was the other thing with it as well. It's like, are you saying that she's not worth at least keeping on as a co-host when she's clearly very competent at the job? And then it brings up the other thing too, which brings it back to the fact that he's so self-centered and that he's so egotistical and so much of a micromanager that he could not even let other people really even host the show. The only other ones that I can think of in recent memory was the Shimcast IRL, right? Where you would have Seamus come on and host. And I look back at that because I've thought to myself, some people might say, well, you can't have someone else on because the numbers wouldn't be there if Tim's not there. Those shows did 300 to 400,000 views, which is about exactly where all of the other shows tend to be, depending on where the guest is. So it shows us that basically what he was able to do, and we can't deny this fact, he was able to build this thing up on his own. Right, he was able to build this up as far as his news commentary. We have to throw certain things to Adam. We have to give Adam Krigler credit because he was a part of founding, the Timcast IRL show and like making that what it is. So we have to obviously give credit there. But as far as just the brand, right, the brand itself, he built that up. But he got to a point where he built it up to a point where he could let other people take over certain things. Right, when he was sick, I remember there was a couple times where he canceled the show. And I'm like, are you serious? Because you're sick, you're canceling the entire show when we already know you've got people that could be there that could actually host the show, and the numbers would be almost the exact same, and the show would actually be pretty good. Because the other problem that he has as a host is that he does not know how to let other people talk.
Odin, as somebody who's allowed Dutch Butters and Brian from the Podcast host Salty Saturdays in the past, I feel Tim's pain. I know. Oh, yes. I know the dichotomy.
But when
there.
you have someone like, a Seamus who can do it, right? Or someone like a Hannah Claire, I'm sorry, like she could host a show. I'm just saying it right now because she could easily take over based on everything that we've seen from the many shows that she was on. And Lord knows there were other people on there that could do the same thing. And so like that to me is like, dude, that's what you're supposed to do, right? You build something, and then you start to say, all right, I'm going to let this part go. I'm going to let this part go. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Especially if it's about numbers or money, if that's like his focus point, like he's not going to really lose much because, as I mentioned, Shimcast did as equal for the numbers. It's not Tim that sells it. It's the fact that he built it because he was able to get all these eyes on these other new people. They're now able to, like, I tune in not for Tim. I tune in because I want to see the panel typically.
Yeah.
I was like,
it's
oh, okay.
usually the
Is
panel.
Hannah Claire on this week? Is is it Libby Evans on this week? Like the people that typically come back, is Luke on? And I know that people hate Ian.
Luke
I
could have
love
been
him,
a great host as well.
Oh,
like
agreed.
if he was given a chance. But
Now someone said was he let go? Like, because he was just on every time that he was in town. So
he basically was doing his own thing. So like he
Yeah.
was just kind of like a casual guest, but like he could have been a guest host. Seamus did a great job. Hannah would have been great.
Hannah Claire, excuse me. I had to correct you.
Hannah Claire.
Correct you. It's Hannah Claire.
Sorry.
Okay.
Even Phil Labonte could have easily, done the hosting duties.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, every time Ian was on a show, I just turned it off because I was like, I don't want to listen to this guy.
It depends. The one thing Tim's right
yeah.
on, he rolls a 1 or a 20, but when he throws those 20s, I'm like, all right, this is fun.
All right. Real quick before we get to super chats, Mr. Reagan, I know that it's very, very late where you are. Are you cool to hang out a little bit longer, or do you need to get going?
No, we can chat a little bit. Just texting this girl I'm dating, and I'm annoyed. So I might as well talk to you guys.
Okay, great.
Do you
Well, we
need to
love
have a
an
struggle
annoyed
session,
Mr. Reagan. Yeah. Do you need to shut down your entire YouTube channel because this girl is?
I might. She's pissing me off. Yeah, no, she's all right.
All right.
I
Well,
think the show's over because I'm not going to text message back.
Is
You
she
know what
watching the
doesn't-
live stream?
You know what doesn't piss Mr. Reagan off is super chat. So we got
Oh,
Anthony
I love
Mark
super
for
chats.
$1.99. Let's
I
welcome
know
the
Anthony
Prince of
Mark.
Parody, Mr. Reagan. Yes. In fact,
Yeah, I
Anthony
love
Mark
that
found
guy.
our show through you. So thank you,
Yeah,
Mr. Reagan,
he's a
for
cool dude.
exposing us to Anthony Mark. He's great. And we have Mephisto's movie reviews for, I don't know what Israeli money is, but it's 15 of that. Happy birthday, Brian. Please don't go crazy today and cause your channel to be deleted. I love the Voyager retrospective.
Thank you.
Brian, are you going to run afoul of YouTube censorship laws?
Well, there's a reason why I have 2 channels. Let's just say that.
Esoteric Civil War, yes.
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Odin.
purposely keep the political stuff off the main channel, and I really thank you for watching the Voyager doc. It took me like 600 hours, so I'm glad someone liked it.
Yeah, you were working on that for a
No,
long
it
time.
was awesome. It was awesome. I've
Thanks,
watched the
man.
whole thing. It's fantastic.
It was hard to get through. Oh my god, I make everything in parts, and I think at part 37, I was like, what the heck? Is this almost over? Shane, he goes, I got like 4 more parts coming. I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh my god.
Well, you guys know what else is awesome is a super chat from Osuki D's in Uts for $1.99. A Trump flirt with no Fed income tax. Tulsi is GOP.
Yeah, true.
Yep.
Yeah.
So thank you, Suki D in Nuts. Always appreciate that. Sukade, these nuts. You know who's Sukade Newts right now, guys, is Marvel and their inability to get Blade off the ground. So this was kind of like a low-key big story. I know like Gary's talked about on his live streams and stuff like that. But guys, Marvel basically has put Blade on indefinite hiatus. They removed them from the 2025 release schedule. And it's come down from on high by Bob Iger himself that Marvel is only allowed to release 3 movies a year going forward. So Blade was on the schedule for November 2025, but they were like, man, we don't have a director. We don't have a script. We haven't started production. We ain't going to make that thing. So they've taken Blade off, and there's no news as to when Blade might be coming back. And in addition to that, I just want to kind of go through the history of the Blade quagmire real quick. Okay. So this is from the Telegraph, and it's kind of like an interesting kind of breakdown of what was going on with the Blade movie. But it turns out, and I didn't know this, that after Mahershala Ali won the Oscar for The Green Book in 2018, he's the one who actually approached Kevin Feige about doing a Blade reboot with him as Blade. And then this kind of era of comedy, I guess, comedy of errors, I guess you would say, began where basically they hired this screenplay writer and screenwrite and actress Stacey O.C. Kufor to write the very first version of this Blade reboot. And it's kind of funny because in this other article, they said that an insider basically told them that someone familiar with the project said that the script for Blade at that point was roughly 90 pages long. And he claimed that the script featured 2 very lackluster action sequences. And this female playwright, Stacey Osei-Kuffour, basically said that her script was a time-traveling fandango set in the 1920s, roughly the time frame in which Blade was born in the comics, featuring quote-unquote European vampires, aka gay vampires. But insiders suggested that there was too much costume drama and not enough carnage. One report claimed that the plot included very lackluster and kid-friendly action scenes, and Mahershala Ali demanded a rewrite because he's like, what the fuck is this shit, right? There's no action in this movie. And then Marvel hired TV writer Michael Starberry to redo the story. His take on Blade seemed even further from the source material. Now Blade was to have become a peripheral character in his own movie with a focus on his sidekick, Lilith, a teenage demon set to be played by Mia Goth. From the X movies. According to a story in Variety, one person familiar with the script's permutations said that the story at one point morphed into a narrative led by a woman and filled with life lessons. Blade was relegated to the fourth lead, a bizarre idea considering the studio had a two-time Oscar winner, Mahershala Ali, on board as the main character. And then as Ali became increasingly restless, more writers were brought in to improve the script, including Beau DeMayo, who's since been fired from the cartoon X-Men 97 amidst complaints of a quote-unquote toxic work environment, aka gay sexual harassment. The True Detective creator Nick Palazzo. Finally, Kevin Feige drafted an Oscar-winning Blade Runner 2049 writer Michael Green. There was less pressure from above to keep. There was also pressure from above to keep the budget to a trim $100 million, less than half the $225 million lavished on the dire Disney Plus folly She-Hulk, the TV series. The film has also cycled through two different directors. One of them was a documentary filmmaker nobody's ever heard of before, and the other one was a French-Algerian director who no one's ever heard of before. And basically, this is just kind of like a really funny comedy of errors to see this development process which should be an easy thing, right? In fact, this article ends by saying, Wesley Snipes remarked on the DVD commentary of the original film, Blade has to start the movie killing vampires and end the movie killing vampires. It couldn't be simpler, the formula for this movie. Yet somehow Marvel has made it complicated and defanged what would have been a sword-slashing, surefire smash. And guys, link to these articles is in the description. But guys, they're right. Blade isn't Shakespeare. It's not rocket science. It's very easy to write a Blade movie, right? So, Mr. Reagan, I know you haven't been doing Alpha Critic for a while, but you do kind of still show up on Sebastian Gorka's Make Movies Great Again segment to talk about pop culture and filmmaking and stuff like that. Why can't Marvel figure out how to do a Blade movie?
Well, they don't really have to, because I mean, how many characters have they yet to turn black? They still got so many. They could turn Thor black. They could turn Loki black. There's so many. The Hulk could probably be Black Hulk soon. They love turning characters black, but when they have an original black character, for some reason, that's difficult for them. I tell you what, give me the script. Just let me write you the script. I'll do it. I'll do it for free. I just want to see another good Blade movie. And like you said, Wesley Snipes, everybody loves Wesley Snipes. Still, we all love Wesley Snipes. He's a pretty old guy now. But give him some cameos. Get a good actor. Okay, it doesn't have to be a friggin' Oscar winner. They don't have to be gay. It doesn't have to be a woman. It doesn't have to be any of this stuff. This is the crazy thing. Writing stories is actually relatively simple. The difficulty is taking the sort of like the stories that we've seen for 1,000 years and putting something in there that people are going to find new and interesting. That's a tricky bit, right? Focus on that. Don't none of this race swapping, none of this gender swapping nonsense. This is not it. This is not going to help you. They've been trying to do this for like 10, 15, 20 years now. To try to do this, like let's make the Force female and all this kind of stuff, and it never worked. It's sort of like communism. They keep going, real communism hasn't been tried yet. Real race swapping hasn't been tried yet. Well, yes, it has actually. You keep doing the same damn thing over and over again, and they keep thinking it's somehow going to magically work this time, and it never does. I mean, look, occasionally you can write things with female leads. You can write things, with black guys in the lead or gay people or something like that. And you can make amazing stuff. But like, this is their go-to thing constantly. And, it's the same thing that we always say, like, what do they say? Get woke, go broke.
Yep.
We all know that it's such a boring thing to say now because it's so obviously true, and they just don't ever learn their lesson. It's kind of weird, actually. It's confusing at this point because I think for a long time people kept saying, "Oh, this will be it. This will be the time they learn their lesson." Right? Like Doomcock always used to say it. It's like, I think they figured it out now. I think with this project, we know that they're done. They're going to actually do good Star Wars now. They're going to actually do good Marvel now. And they just keep doubling down and tripling down. And they just never, it's like a giant pit that they keep digging themselves into. And they never figure out how to get out of it. And it's so easy, but it's like the one thing that they need to do to get out of it, they won't do, which is just like tailor their projects to the people who want to watch them, which is like primarily white guys.
So Odin, they have a 2-time Oscar winner with Mahershala Ali, who's a fantastic actor.
Mm-hmm.
And they hire a female playwright to basically write her version of an Anne Rice novel. And Mahershala Ali is like, dude, where's the badass vampire killing? And then they hire a total woke guy to basically replace Blade with a female main character and sideline this 2-time Oscar winner. And Mahershala Ali is like, why am I sidelined in my own Marvel movie? And all he wants to do is cash those big comic book checks. He just wants to cash in on some of his fame and acclaim and stuff like that. And he's like, why is this so hard? Odin, why is it so hard for Marvel to just make a Blade movie?
Because this is what happens when activists take over. Because activists aren't really caring at all about the money. They want the message, right? All that matters is the messaging. And so what they have discovered is that they cannot create their own content. They cannot actually create their own unique characters because when they do, they flop. No one has any interest in them. No one wants to see it and pay any money for it. And so how do they actually get their messaging across? They take established IPs, established brands, and decide to put in their woke nonsense into those brands, which ultimately drives people away and leaves Marvel in the situation that they are in now, which of course leads to them losing money on massive projects and massive IPs. So it's really not all that surprising, seeing with the direction that all of the companies under Disney have been going through. Now, I'm wondering if maybe because of the recent reporting about how Marvel is turning things around and starting to take things more seriously, I'll believe it when I see it. As we all know, they've already got so many films in the pipe already, and any real effect and any real change will not be actually felt until another 3 to 4 years have gone by and these projects can actually go through. But this would be a great place to start of being like, all right, let's go back to basics. Let's just make a badass Blade film. Because guess what? If you just stick to a basic, you even make a 90-minute film, you somehow make it for $100 million or less, because you can do that for a Blade movie. Guess what? You can make bank. If it's all about making money, that's how you make money. Also, in addition to that, by making money, you also, by proxy, in most cases, are making a good story that fans actually enjoy. So fans don't really ask for a whole lot, right? Because you could even be critical of films like a Spider-Man No Way Home. But why does everyone love the movie as far as having a lot of enjoyment by it making billions of dollars? It's because it gave fans what they wanted. It gave fans something that they were actually looking forward to and to be excited about. That's what fans do. That's what fans want. So, this whole mindset, and obviously the woke media will always try to say, well, it's not because of the messaging. It's just because, the superhero genre's just been done at this point, right? It's superhero fatigue. No, it's bad movie fatigue, and superhero movies just happen to be a large part of that bad movie fatigue. If you make good films, and if you make movies at the very least give fan service, they will show up.
That's very true. And Odin, I want to just pick your brain on this real quick before we get to Mr. Butters, which is basically, I feel like Marvel has the Kamala Harris problem, right? which is basically they don't know how to connect with the male demographic anymore, and therefore the male demographic isn't showing up for them. Like this idea that like you have a vampire with all the strengths and none of the weaknesses, who has dual swords and wants to kill other vampires in gruesome, bloody, single combat. It's like, how hard, like why would you hire a woman to write that, right? Like someone who wants to make an Anne Rice play, essentially. Yeah.
Again, it comes down to woke identity politics. It's because they were like, oh, we got to hire a woman. We got to check all of our little boxes, right? And that's where that's what's killing them right now. Because if they just said, all right, nope, we're finding the best person for the job. Let's find someone who's maybe written for Blade before. Let's find someone who maybe is a huge fan of Blade and has done other things, right? And I've said before, as far as directors go, just get the director of John Wick involved in this movie, right? Like
Oh, but
that's a
he's
great
white.
way.
Because all the Wick movies are
Exactly.
fantastic.
He's white. And so that's why they need to get out of this whole racial identity politics nonsense, woke activist BS, and just say, nope, let's make movies great again. Okay, because it could be done, but you got to start saying best person for the job, not what the color of their skin is. Actually, judge people based on the content of their character instead.
And build the
I thought-
wall.
I think
Big glorious wall.
I think Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds killed this movie.
Yeah,
The-
in fact,
the-
One
Dutch,
blade.
Dutch, I wanted to ask you about that because Wesley Snipes made a very surprising cameo in Deadpool
All
and
right, I'm
Wolverine.
gonna go. I
All
have
right, thank you for being here, Mr. Reagan.
Bye, Mr. Reagan.
The,
no spoilers, you guys. Come on. Fucking off.
But
Love you.
yeah, thanks for being here, Mr. Reagan.
Good night, man.
The movie is streaming now, right? You know that, right?
Yeah. Well, he's out of the country, so they might not have it where he is at. But Mr. Butters, so like Wesley Snipes had a very famous cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine as Blade, and he made that prophetic line where he's like, there will only ever be one Blade, and he's so far proven true. So what's your take on that?
I was just going to say, I think Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds killed whatever last vestige there was left of this Mahershala Ali Blade movie with that line in that movie, because all the executives and the people at Disney and Marvel had to do was look at the reaction that the public had to that one single line in the Deadpool Wolverine movie. We were like, yes, there was YouTube freaking streams based around that one single line in the thing. There was articles about it. There was, people were tweeting about it. It was crazy. There was a huge reaction, and all anybody wants with these Blade movies is Wesley Snipes to come back and make it. He absolutely is capable of doing it. He looks great. He's in great shape, and and if he's too old to pull off some of the stuff, well, that's what they have stuntmen and body doubles for. And
but the two main actors that for this new Blade movie and the original Blade are only like 12 years apart, right?
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, Mahershala Ali's not like a spring chicken either, right?
No.
So
Yeah, he's pushing 50.
But yeah, I like I said, I think that single line in that movie killed the one that they wanted to make, because I think have finally just put them to a point where it's like, we're making a movie nobody wants. What people want is a Blade movie with Wesley Snipes, and it wouldn't shock me if they announce a movie with Wesley Snipes coming in the next year. So. Wouldn't surprise me at all. So,
well, you know what they might announce, and this is what I want to ask Brian about. So, like, rumors ever since Blade has been indefinitely shelved, rumors have been flying that what they're going to do is they're going to take a page out of Zack Snyder's book and do a Midnight Suns movie where they basically take the characters from Werewolf by Night, Elsa Bloodstone, Man-Thing, Moon Knight, possibly Ghost Rider, and Blade, and put them in kind of like a Thunderbolt style, like team movie called Midnight Suns, and then from there spin those characters off into like their own individual movies. And I actually thought Werewolf by Night was like a really cool entry into the Marvel universe. It didn't get a lot of attention because it was a direct to Disney Plus streaming release,
Plus
but
it was in black and white.
It was in black and white, but like it was actually like a really good like little short. It was only like a half hour long too, but it introduced like a lot of very interesting characters from the horror side of the Marvel universe. Do you think there's any truth to this Midnight Suns movie? And if there is this a good idea for Marvel to pursue?
They've been talking about Ghost Rider for a long time. That was Ghost Rider's been a fan favorite for decades. They tried the movie with Nick Cage. It was not really well received.
Wasn't there like 3 of those?
There was 2.
At least 2?
There's 2. But there are fans of it. They had Ghost Rider in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was popular enough as a cameo for them to dedicate pretty much an entire season to it. Ghost Rider is a popular character. Blade's a popular character. The other characters are not as popular. But that doesn't mean you can't make franchises out of non-popular characters. Look, the Guardians of the Galaxy characters were not popular characters until the movie, right?
I'm only interested unless Morbius is going to be in it. Is Morbius going to be in it?
And Morbius is a Sony thing, so probably not. No,
it's Morbin time. Let's go.
They don't want to deal with any Sony co-owned characters. The thing is, though, like I would like the idea of a Midnight
Suns.
Yeah, that'd be rad. But like he says in the movie, like Wesley says in the movie, motherfucker's trying to ice skate uphill.
Yeah.
Like, this is not that hard. Reagan said it. This is not that hard. This is what fans want. They like these characters. It's already been proven. You have the numbers from the comic books and the cartoons and the TV shows of people that have supported these characters for decades. Stop trying to ice skate uphill, dude. This is not that difficult. Turn around and just make another Blade movie. Do I think the idea of doing a Midnight Suns and then spinning off is a good idea? I think that's backwards. I think maybe make a Blade movie and a Ghost Rider movie. Then you can do Midnight Suns, where it introduces like the more like lesser known characters, and then make their 2 movies. Then you can make a Midnight Suns 2 if you want. Like, you can just follow the Avengers, the Marvel Phase 1 playbook, make the popular movies, make your Avengers, then make your less popular characters, make them popular, and then rinse and repeat. I mean, like, they've already have the playbook. They've done this. And they have the numbers. They know what to do. But yes, you need Wesley Snipes for the Blade movie. Like, he's not that old. He looks great. He didn't even have time to bulk up, and he still looked great. Like, he had a very short amount of time to film that with Deadpool.
Yeah. All right, guys. So because Odin is here and I've been dying to talk to him about this, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Terrifier 3 versus Joker 2. And this has been kind of the Cinderella story of the year, right? Where basically we have this low budget horror movie that came out, and with a $500,000 marketing budget, was #1 at the box office. It brought in $18 million. This was a $2 million movie. Brought in $18 million its opening weekend, dethroned one of the biggest box office bombs in history, apparently, Joker 2. And there's this great article here from The Wrap where they basically interview the guy who owns the studio that released Terrifier 2. And they kind of talk a little bit about their strategy and how they decided to market this film using a fraction of the marketing budget that most major Hollywood movies do, and why it was successful. And if you guys want to get all the details, link to the article is in the description. But basically, the people who made this movie, so they bought out Bloody Disgusting, which is like an online publication that's all dedicated to horror stuff. And when after they bought out Bloody Disgusting, they went to the people who run Bloody Disgusting. They're like, hey, what are some good movies that we should be paying attention to? And the guys at Bloody Disgusting pointed out the first Terrifier movie, and they're like, this Art the Clown is the next Freddy Krueger. It's like this is going to be the next big iconic horror slasher monster type thing. And so they actually did something revolutionary in Hollywood. They actually listened to the people who are hardcore fans and deep into the niche that they're looking to explore. And they decided to put a little bit of money behind Terrifier 2, right? And then Terrifier 2 freaking blew up. And then they decided to take Terrifier 3 a little bit more seriously. And so they basically talked about how they use their streaming network, which I think is Screambox. It's not Shudder. It's like the second big horror streaming service, Screambox. And they basically, on all their podcast networks and like all their Bloody Disgusting articles and stuff like that, they started like low-key promoting Terrifier 3. And with just $500,000, they turned that into an $18 million win and dethroned the sequel to a $1 billion film at the box office. Now, Odin, I know you keep very close tabs on this type of stuff. You've talked about the Terrifier versus Joker stuff on previous episodes. What's your take on this?
It's still, honestly, it's amazing. I was very interested to see after that very massive opening weekend, especially for its budget, where the film would end up lying in against some of the bigger films, especially after whatever its first weekend drop would be. And it only dropped. Like, I thought it was going to be a pretty staggering drop because I thought, oh, most people that are going to see it opening weekend are people that are all for this type of filmmaking, all for this kind of way of going around the system. Because one of the things that's most beautiful about this movie, and this is coming from someone also, I have no intention of seeing this film. This film is not made for anyone like me, but it's numbers and it's making numbers, and that's my game. And the thing that just is amazing is that it's a non-rated film, and it was able then to get past the MPA, which does all the ratings. It was able to get past the studio system, both in production and in distribution, right? Putting it out into the actual theaters. and it was still able to be successful. They actually had to, they created their own distribution company just to take care of handling the deals between them and the theaters. So they were basically, the people making the movie were working hand in hand with the theaters, working out deals with them. This is something that typically just does not happen, right? Theaters don't see a lot of money in non-rated movies, for one, let alone films that are not being put out by major distribution networks. And so the fact that they were able to say, no, trust us, we've got people behind this. Terrifier 2 obviously helped with that quite a bit. So more people had trusted it this time. The movie ended up getting released in thousands of theaters, so much more than I would have ever expected. I think it was like over 2,500 screens. So for a non-rated film to get that was amazing. Then the next weekend, guess what? They added more theaters. So more theaters were like, we want in on this, please, you know, like bring us into this. And they still made money. They only had like a 50% or so drop from week 1 to week 2. So the film has actually held on pretty well down the line.
And they released it on the right month.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's what always drives me crazy when these horror films come out in January or they come out over the summertime. I'm like, look, I get summertime maybe, but even then it's like this film is made to come out over the spooky season, and there's plenty of love to go around because, and this is something that people don't understand. People think, oh, but if you put too many of these films in the month, then they're all gonna lose money because it's all gonna split the audience. That's just not really true, because if a movie is good or if a movie piques the interest of people, it doesn't matter if there's more than one film out. People will go see it. They'll just go see it on different days. And that's what you've seen really with this movie, is it's been holding very well. This film has now made 22.9 times its budget. Wow. To put that in perspective, one of the biggest films to come out over the last several years was Avengers Endgame 2019, which made $2.7 billion. That film only made 6.9 times its budget. So even though, right, we could say, okay, but total numbers obviously are quite different, the fact that this film was able to, with almost nothing, right? I mean, Hollywood Studios is going to look at $2 million budget and say, we could do that easily, right? I'm hoping what this does, though, is it incentivizes more independent creators to say, hey, we can go this route too, whether it's in the horror genre, whether it's in a different genre altogether. I mean, I would personally be loving to see some low-budget sci-fi movies get released. Because if they can start going after certain genres, certain demographics, they could start to create a revolution where, guess what, you don't need Hollywood anymore.
Or even a return to those cheesy 80s action movies, like the Commando style movies, you know, where it's just like, yeah, cheap action. It's fun. Brian, I wanted to ask you about a take on this. And with horror being so popular, especially during the spooky season, there's been a lot of articles dropping about how Hollywood is afraid of quote unquote horror fatigue, right? Where basically they're worried that audiences are going to get fed up with all these horror movies, because 2024 has been the year of the horror movie, right? Like all these like low budget horror movies have been coming out. Right. They've been doing really well. But people are starting to kind of get fed up with Blumhouse and A24 style films because they just feel like they're not actually horror movies. They're kind of made for more general audiences. They're not as gory. The thing that made Terrifier 3 so unique was like it wasn't afraid to shy away from the gore factor and appeal to like those hardcore horror fans. Do you think that there's a danger of audiences kind of like not caring about horror movies anymore? Because horror has been one of the most consistent staples of film, of the film industry since the film industry began with like Nosferatu and stuff like that. So horror has never gone out of style, but I think Hollywood, like, it's always a buzz term that, fatigue, where it's basically just like they're making movies that audiences don't want to see. But it seems like the horror movies know what the audiences want to see and aren't afraid to give it to them. So do you think there's any danger of audiences fatiguing on horror movies?
I mean, no. I think that you have like this generational churn. So there are kids that can't watch these movies. Either they haven't been allowed to, or they're too scared, or whatever. And then like the older they get, the more interested they get in the edgelord, the edgy horror, body horror, crazy, human centipede, and that kind of stuff.
The substance recently.
The substance, right? They get interested in that, like, and they want to push their own boundaries on what's scary, and they either watch it, they watch it when they get older, they watch it on streaming, then video, whatever, and they become fans of that, and they start watching that in their young adulthood. They start watching those movies. So you have this generational churn that's always gonna love that next generation. So as long as you're sort of pushing that envelope the way horror always does, like you're always going to have that next generation coming up to watch it. I am no longer interested in horror. It's got to have like an actual substance, no pun intended to the substance. The substance had substance, surprisingly. It was a horror movie, you know, a sort of body horror, but it was about like the industry and what it does and how it churns, you know, out people, especially women. It was a very interesting movie, but it was also sort of horror. That is the kind of horror movie I like. Do I like movies like Terrifier 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever? No. Like, I have zero interest in those movies. I don't care about movies that are just trying to shock me with how gory and bloody it can be, because I am not 19 anymore. You know, I'm not. I needed something a little more when it comes to a story. But there are a lot of 19s turning 19-year-olds turning 19 and 17
and 16
and 16.
Trust me, as a teacher, I see it happen all the time.
Right.
All right.
You know,
literally heard kids.
some people say.
Literally kids talking outside. Like I had a lunch duty, and I heard kids, and the conversation was,
Right.
"So how are we gonna be able to get to see Terrifier 3 this weekend?" So it's
Right,
like,
yeah,
it's happening.
It's like a rite of passage for like older teens. That's always going to happen. So you're not going to lose that genre, because that's literally always going to happen. Like, how are we going to see the Terrifier 47? I'm sure my kids in like 6 years are going to be like, yo, how do we get to watch this new Human Centipede meets Terrifier 7 or whatever? Like, I get it. Like movies that they weren't allowed to watch, or they're legally not allowed to watch. Like, they're going to try to watch them, and they're going to push that edge, which is what all teenagers do. They all push boundaries, trying to find their personal boundaries. That's what horror has done. Now, for us, I'm no longer interested in that kind of crap. I have zero interest. Like, I'm never going to sign up for a streaming service where it's like Full Moon Productions. Like, I don't care. Like, I do not care about crappy C-rated horror movies. There are still people that are into that because of like the genre, and I think it's mostly nostalgia, but I think what you have in fans are the younger people that are going to come up, and it's built in. It's built into their boundary pushing. It's a generational churn is built in. So you're never going to lose horror movies.
Man, when I was a kid, the one thing you had to do was you had to like get those Freddy Krueger movies in.
Yeah,
Not let your parent know about it.
Mr. Butters. So Chris McGurk, who's the CEO of the company that distributed the Terrifier movies, he specifically kind of talked about their strategy here, which is basically the first two Terrifier films appealed very strongly to like the gore audience of horror movies. And you know, I've never been a big gore person. I think most people aren't. But he's talking about how with Terrifier 3, what they're trying to do is they're trying to go a little bit campier, right? Like they're trying to move away from the gore and go more towards campy Freddy Krueger style, like you know, comedy almost. And that's in order to broaden the appeal for these movies, where it's like they already have the gore people, right? So the gore people are going to go see Terrifier movies no matter what, but they want to bring they want to bring in those people's friends who maybe aren't as into the gore, but like they're into like the funny deaths or like whatever the case may be. And when you and I were growing up in the 80s, like that was like a big thing. And it was like, yeah, like the 80s horror movies were gory, but at the same time, like they were almost so ridiculous that it undercut like the realism of the gore, right?
Yeah, I mean, we recently rewatched Friday the 13th, or no, it was the first Freddy Krueger movie, Nightmare on Elm Street, and I hadn't seen it in 30 years, and I was almost disappointed in how kind of lackluster it was. You know what I mean? It was just like, oh, I remember this scene. This scene's going to be awesome, and next thing you know, you're like, oh. That didn't hit us quite as well.
Yeah, but do you even remember like you know, like Slumber Party Massacre, where it's like if you saw a boob in a horror movie, you were just like, this is the best movie ever.
It's like,
dude, I'm sorry. Do you remember that GIF we made of that the Jason X movie?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
The camp scene, like
you want to smoke some weed and have premarital sex?
Yeah. So when you go campy like that and you're sort of like making fun of your own genre, like I'm sorry, I'm up for that. I'll take it. And then you have giant Jason, just slamming him up against.
Even better was Leprechaun 4, where you just had that GIF that you made, where that guy just kind of wheels in from behind.
Dude, sometimes I watch that on my Giphy account and I just laugh. It's so funny.
It is funny.
I don't know. I just haven't watched a lot of good horror movies, I guess, in my day. You know, and when I do watch the ones that people always tell me to go watch, like Exorcist, for example, which I didn't ever watch till like just a few years ago, I was just disappointed. It was just so not great. But you know, and I also want to say I think the advent of horror movies with a PG-13 rating just destroyed the whole genre. You know, who wants to go watch a PG-13 horror movie? It's get out of here.
If it's
lame.
good, that's the problem.
They're usually not good though.
Yeah.
What's
it's usually
the Quiet Place maybe would be an example of a good PG-13 horror
There
movie.
are
ones
good
that were
movies
fun.
that are like
Megan was fun for a lot of people.
Yeah. There are movies that are like they're horror adjacent almost. Like there's a horror quality to it, but it's more, I don't know what the word is, but like it's more
It's just kind of creepy and
more
off-putting.
sinister.
thriller,
Right?
yeah.
But Intelligence and Poltergeist, perfect example. That's a good PG-13 horror movie.
Yeah, it's a Spielberg horror movie. But what's interesting, and Odin kind of talked about this, is that Terrifier 3 is unique in the sense that it didn't go through the MPAA rating process. It was unrated, released wide in theaters. And in a weird way, like if a horror movie's unrated, in a way it's even more like kind of taboo and interesting to horror fans, because it's like, oh, why isn't it rated? You know, like is it too crazy that it can't even get an R movie? It was going to get an X, and so like they had to like do it unrated.
Yeah, but in reality, they just forgot to send the print to the MPAA.
But I think to Odin's point, that this could be the sign that going forward, more indie horror movies are going to bypass the rating system and just try to get released in theaters unrated.
Sure.
Because, you know, there is no government mandate that, like, you know, something has to go through the MPAA to get into theaters. And especially with the damage that COVID did to like the theater chains, theaters are desperate to find anything that's going to put butts in seats right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if there's like a lot of like indie horror films that are willing to give the box office, like the theaters, a bigger cut of the box office and actually get people to show up, I think that more theaters would be willing to go past the MPAA rating system. Don't you think so, Odin?
I think you're right.
Yeah, no, and that's what I'm kind of really hoping for, is that they're able to do so, because as you all know, I'm someone where I like certain things not in films. I think that certain things in rated R movies just become so repetitive. Like they're not really adult stories. They're like that almost what's the word I'm looking for? Almost like a complete joke on what an adult film is supposed to be. It's like, oh, it's an adult film, so it has to have nudity, it has to have this or that. It's like, no, like you could have more things in there than just those elements. And so I think having it be non-rated also puts it more incumbent upon the audience and even on the theaters as well. It almost brings it back in certain ways to maybe a more old school way of filmmaking, right? Where maybe you start to have those lobby cards. Maybe you start to have those things where it's like, if you want to know more information about the movie, there's information that you can get from either the theater or from the studio. And yeah, I think that you'll actually be able to do quite a bit with that going forward. And it'd be awesome to see new genres other than horror be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Odin, is that like this Chris McGurk guy who was, you know, interviewed for this article about the Terrifier stuff, like his company actually has like a large kind of, it's almost like Disney, like in its acquiring methods, where it has like Bloody Disgusting, but it also has other publications under it. It has its own streaming network, but it has multiple streaming networks, podcast networks, like all this other stuff. And they were like, hey, horror is just a small vertical in our overall organization. We have stuff for family content, we have stuff for like comedy, we have stuff for women, like all this other stuff. And they're like, we want to start applying this model across all these other verticals. And so like it'll be interesting to see like if this type of thing has like creates another indie cinema boom where we start seeing lower budget stuff that gets plugged into this new form of marketing within like, you know, these different verticals. I think that'd be really interesting to see. You know what isn't interesting though, guys, is it appears that Lionsgate Cinema isn't interesting anymore.
It's so bad.
So guys, Lionsgate has a losing streak going on. Its last 7 consecutive box office releases have been certified flops at the box office. And this to me is absolutely crazy, because Lionsgate, you know, you think of Lionsgate and you think like John Wick and like, you know, all this other stuff. But listen to this. So basically this year, okay, so you had Eli Roth's Borderlands, you had the Crow reboot, You had the historical crime drama 1992, which I didn't hear of. Halle Berry's post-apocalyptic horror story Never Let Go. Dave Bautista's action comedy The Killer's Game. Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis. And then these movies, the Wonder prequel White Bird. Like all these movies that Lionsgate has been releasing, and they have been certifiable box office failures, like taking in fractions of what they cost to make and market. And this is coming off of a year where basically, I think last year they had Saw 10, they had John Wick 4, they had the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which was the prequel to the Hunger Games stuff.
Games, yeah.
So like they're coming off a strong year with probably one of the worst years a major movie studio has ever seen before. And so like I wanted to ask you guys, we'll start with you, Odin, since you're our box office expert. Why is Lionsgate just hitting flop after flop?
It's a couple things. I think for one, it's the movies that they're making. So the movies themselves are not very good, but then also the distribution has not been good. I think the marketing has been very, very poor. The film 1992, for instance, it was barely being marketed, and a lot of people didn't even know that it existed, and it came out when it actually had its release. I had to hunt quite a bit just to find any box office information because no one was seeing it. There was just no data.
It only made like $3 million.
Yeah, and like I will say, like as far as that list is concerned, 1992 is definitely the most, probably the most successful one on that list, because even there though, it's actually hard to find what the actual budget for the movie was. But it may have actually made a small profit if it indeed only cost about, I think the estimates were that it cost around maybe $10 million to make. And so if that is the case, that it may have actually made a little bit of money never mind. $13 million loss. So scratch that. But still, a $13 million loss is actually the best, because those other films you mentioned, we're talking losses of $157 million, $174 million, $67 million, and $41 million. So this is the best case that they have. The best film they have is a loss of $13 million.
Well, they made money off Megalopolis because they made Francis Ford Coppola pay for the entire production and marketing of the movie.
Okay, well, there you go. There you go. Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing too. Is like there's some movies that have distribution deals, and so the actual financials of whether the company makes money or not are going to be kind of like, okay, we'll have to hunt those things down. But as far as an actual movie, yeah, these films are just doing awful with the worst. Even without Megalopolis, you still have to go back. Which is
Megalopolis.
Seriously, that's the name for the movie. It's Megalopolis.
Yeah, Megalopolis.
Borderlands though, $157 million in losses there, and that movie was just a badly chosen film.
Yeah.
That could have been big because Borderlands is big. Just look at what Five Nights at Freddy's did. Like, if you were able to actually make a movie that intrigues the fan base for it, then you can do it. But when you're casting Cate Blanchett in a role that she's decades past being able to play, and amongst other things they did with that, yeah, no one's gonna go see it, and no one has.
And she worked her butt off too. Like, that movie could have been great. Like, they just made bad decisions. Like, they worked so hard. Like, she should have been the character that the other old chick was. I forgot her name.
Jamie Lee Curtis.
She should have been the Jamie Lee Curtis character. Like, and you could have had a younger actor play that. And that movie could have been great. It's just weird mistakes.
I look at this list of movies that all failed, and I just don't see anything on here that even remotely interests me. Like Borderlands. I looked at Borderlands. I knew it was going to be crap, and I just immediately thought to myself, well, I'll watch it when it comes out on streaming. That just immediately went to my streaming box list. The Crow, you couldn't pay me to go watch that abomination. It never should have been made. There's no way. Halle Berry post-apocalyptic love story, huh? What is this movie? Never heard of it. Dave Bautista, if he'd shut his fucking mouth and just act like all these other action stars should do, he would be fine. But
he's
I'm not
too busy clutching his pearls.
Yeah, he's got to clutch his pearls. His
literal
pearls.
I have no interest in watching Dave Bautista movie right now.
What's amazing though about Never Let Go?
Crazy.
One thing about Never Let Go that you just mentioned is that the movie actually did decent word of mouth. Just the problem was no one really wanted to go see it in the first place, because that movie ended up almost like tripling the amount of money it made after.
Also, Halle Berry is not a movie star.
No,
Yeah,
not.
I
You
just
have to
keep going
market
down
it.
this list. I keep going down this list. It's like Megalopolis. That's like hoity-toity art film.
Flopolis,
whatever.
excuse me.
I'll watch it some other time. And White Bird. I have no idea what these movies are. So yeah,
Yeah, too much fart sniffing over
So-
there, bro, for sure.
So Whitebird is a weird one. It's a co-production with another place, but also it apparently got 2023 released, but then it didn't get theatrical distribution until 2024. Because I remember I was looking for it, and apparently it had been online already since like 2023. So yeah, that's just a weird one.
Well, Mr. Butters, when it comes to the Dave Bautista movie, The Killer's Game, that's the one where he's like an assassin
right.
and he gets misdiagnosed with terminal cancer and he hires somebody to like kill him. This is not an original story because this type of movie has been done multiple times before. However, Dave Bautista should be a huge draw. And this was something that went right to video, essentially. It only made $5.9 million. And it had to cost way more than that. And I think a big reason for that is because Dave Bautista has been hurting his brand with all of his like weird wokeness. What's your take on that?
Well, it's just like I said, he's in the same list now to me as like Mark Hamill, he just everything out of his mouth and out of his social media is just politics right now, and you can't get away from it at all because everybody's like that at the moment. Excuse me, but he's just too mouthy when it comes to Kamala Harris and all this stuff. I'm not interested in his take. And if people are into that, then they should go watch his movies. But I'm not going to do it right now.
$30 million of that budget. $30 million to make that movie. It lost $41 million because of how much they get back. It's bad.
Yeah, it's wild though. Like he could be a movie star if he got out of his own way. He's got to get like he's. I don't want to be the next. Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Why not?
Well, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you definitely want.
He's certainly not an actor.
I don't agree. Yeah, because that's the one thing The Rock had was that I wouldn't say that he's a brilliant actor, but he had the charisma as a performer in wrestling to do something like that. Like his transition to film made a lot of sense. Batista's does not because he was never a good performer as far as his personality in the ring is concerned. All he can do is yell. Look at any movie he does, and he can't even yell right. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, Brian, so Lionsgate, looking at this string of flops, they for next year, they seem to be kind of like repivoting back to their franchises. So they're going to have the ballerina spinoff from John Wick, starring everyone's favorite Ana de Armas. Then they're going to have another Hunger Games prequel, and then they're going to have a sequel to the Now You See Me movies, which Now You See Me 2 was like one of the worst movies I think I've ever seen in my life. So I don't know why they're continuing with that one.
Yeah, but I loved Now You See Me 1. I'm conflicted
but they also are looking to appeal to more Black audiences, as they said, and faith-based audiences. And so they're going to be going for like lower budget, kind of like, fare for the Black audience and for like the Christian Catholic audience as well.
And trying to make us make some money before they go belly up. Yeah, that's so bad.
And weird films like Flight Risk with Mel Gibson directing, of all things, and Mark Wahlberg. You've seen the trailer, trust me, because you're like, wait, Mark Wahlberg's bald.
Yeah,
it's the weirdest thing. It's the worst thing in the trailer. Like,
I want to watch it so bad though because he's gonna play a bald bad guy. Like that might be the first.
Yeah,
maybe it's brilliant. We don't even know.
But it seems to me like Lionsgate is lacking a fundamental strategy, like overall strategy.
This is what he looks like, basically. Yeah.
Are you saying Tim Pool's a villain?
Yes, Tim Pool is the villain of Flight Risk.
So Mark Wahlberg's playing Tim Pool.
Exactly.
I get it.
Yeah. Mark Wahlberg is Tim Pool in the last IRL stream. Yeah.
He's in the plane. He's like, yeah, this is my new gig. I had to get rid of my show because of a graphics card. It was a whole thing.
Dude,
damn it.
Tim Pool would be hyped if Mark Wahlberg played him in a movie.
Yeah, he would. He'd be so hyped.
Old Jack skateboarding. It's like, yeah, man.
Now, if Lionsgate made that movie, it'd be a huge hit.
Right.
Hey guys, how's it doing? It's gonna be a civil war.
Yeah, that's right. So Brian, what's your take on Lionsgate's seemingly lack of strategy here?
I think they have a strategy. It's we can't make a blockbuster consistently, so we're gonna go ahead and focus on these very specific groups, faith-based and black groups, that will always watch anything that is catered to them, and will make plenty of money because those movies don't require a lot of money to begin with. And I'm not knocking faith-based movies, but my wife's aunt has something called Pure Flix, and every single movie on there is just atrocious. There might be like 2 or 3 that are watchable, that have like good writing and good budget, but 98% of these movies are just really, really low budget, super bad. But my wife's aunt swears by this service, spends 3 times more than what it would cost for Peacock to keep this service going, buys the DVDs, really into it because she is very faith-based.
Dude, it looks like it's all Hallmark Christmas movies.
Yeah, but it's the Christian version of that. It's like Christian Hallmark movies. That's basically what it is. And so that community, like, they go to theaters. Like, they will go to theaters after church on Sunday with a huge group to watch the next Kevin Sorbo God's Not Dead Part 7. And they will go watch it. And I'm not by the way, I'm not knocking these movies. Good for them. But they don't cost very much. They're very cheap to make. And the community supports them way more than other communities would, because there's a lot of Christians. So guess what? Focusing on that, it's a good business decision. So I think it's actually a good strategy. The strategy is, we can't make a consistent blockbuster, so let's just cater to these very specific niche groups that are huge and support anything that has black in the title or God in the title.
Well, so this is a great segue for a final story that I wanted to pick Odin's brain on, which is Chick-Fil-A has announced a name for their new streaming service. Now, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Chick-Fil-A is launching their own streaming channel, and they just came out with their name for it, the official name, which is Chick-Fil-A Play, and it's a free app, and it's meant to have like kind of like family friendly fare on it, and it's like they have a cartoon. It's kind of like a claymation style thing with like the Chick-Fil-A cows. And then there's another one called Legends of the Evergreen, where, there are these sparks that every time somebody does a good deed, these sparks like show up and they're magical. And there's like an evil like villain in the Spark Land that's trying to destroy all the sparks. And this young girl has to help save the sparks from like the evil. And people are saying like, oh, this is designed to turn kids against gays, and that the sparks are turning like gays straight and like all this other stuff. But like that's from like the fringe like critics of people who already hate Chick-fil-A for their politics and religion. Yeah. And what I found very interesting about this is, like, you might say like, oh, Chick-fil-A having their own streaming service, that's stupid. They're like a fast food joint or whatever. But to me, this is actually, I feel like this is a threat to Disney, because Chick-fil-A, they're a company that, is very kind of like fixed in their faith. They cater to a very specific type of crowd. And now they're kind of like dipping their toe into original series creation. And I know that that Daily Wire tried to do this with Bent Key and stuff like that. I don't know what they're smoking over at Daily Wire, because they just don't seem to know what they're doing.
Or real, dude. I don't get it.
But Chick-fil-A, like the description of the original stuff that they're making for kids, and knowing that, like, like Brian said, after church, people go to Chick-fil-A to get like a bite to eat before they go home. And since this is a free app, this is something that they'll be playing at Chick-fil-A. This is something that they can call up on their phone to entertain the kids while they're eating and stuff like that. And because people trust Chick-fil-A and their faith and stuff like that, they're not going to have to sit there and pre-screen this stuff to make sure there's nothing offensive or going against their values that they're exposing their kids to. So I want to get Odin's take on this. Odin, do you think that this is like a low-key brilliant strategy for Chick-fil-A to kind of like be moving towards?
Personally, I don't, because at least one of the problems with what you mentioned was that they close on Sundays. So where most people are going to church, right? You're not going to really have that be able to happen in that way.
But church is open more than just Sunday.
I know, but for a huge portion of Christians, like Sunday is the day, right?
Yeah.
That church is there. But no, I think even beyond that, though, the problem is that it's just another streaming service, and with all of the free streaming services that are already available, this one just seems like kind of like one of those gimmicky ones that maybe some people have interest in, but ultimately will just not really do all that much. Won't make much of a splash. I know I have no interest in it. The Chick-fil-A Play, whatever that might mean. It's just, I don't know.
It should have been called Chick Flicks. Someone said that in the chat. It should have been called Chick Flicks.
But also, if anyone's a good parent, they'll still want to vet things before they let their kids watch it.
Yeah, I have to watch everything before my kids watch it, dude. Everything. You know what sucks is I don't even trust the Disney app anymore.
No,
there is straight up adult things.
And you're a major shareholder.
And I'm
for some reason still.
keep bringing that shit up, bro.
You're holding the shares, man.
Yep.
I have to.
You're diamond-handed the shares.
Look,
I'm
I'm waiting for
the biggest Disney shareholder on the Salty Saturday stream.
That's true. I am. Yeah. I'm waiting for Trump to get elected, hopefully, and maybe that needle moves up by like attrition, and then I can just get out.
Yep. Sell high. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I just want to sell like even.
Guys, speaking of getting out, it's time to wrap things up. We had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. Dutch, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something about Chick-fil-A Play?
No, I don't anymore. Just move on.
Oh, you had something you wanted to say, Dutch? Go ahead.
No, not really.
Go ahead, Dutch.
Come on, Dutch.
Talk
Go
about
ahead.
Chick-fil-A Play. Talk about Chick-fil-A Play. Oh, he went away.
He's pulling a Tim Pool. He's throwing a tantrum.
Oh,
yeah,
no.
I want to hear as well. Come on, Dutch.
Yeah, come on,
Come
Dutch.
on
I
back.
want to hear what you want to say.
No, I was just gonna say the Chick-fil-A app thing. You know how like on Roku or your TV when you're going through all your apps and you have Netflix and Prime and everything else that you just scroll past and don't even look at. Well, that's where that's gonna end up. There's just gonna be a Chick-fil-A button there, and you're gonna go, "What's that?" And you just move past it.
Yeah, I've had the CW app on my Roku for like 6 years, and I haven't clicked on it.
I've got 30 apps on my Roku that I look at that are all there. Fubi, Fubo, Tubo.
This. It's just that top six is like a mile band. Yeah.
And for some reason, I got like Netflix on the top and one other channel I look at clear down at the bottom of the list. So you got to scroll through all of everything.
You can move it,
Get the other ones.
You could.
I'm not that smart.
You can actually set it to auto sort by popularity.
You know what? If they integrated Chick-fil-A Play with their Chick-fil-A app where you could order food with,
I think that potential.
Yeah, they'd probably get a lot more reviews on that one.
Or if you buy their stuff, you get like discounts on their food. Then you.
There you go. Like if you watch all entire season, you get like a $5 coupon or something like that. It could work.
So now we're one of those like game apps. Watch the ad and get free gems for your gram.
All right, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my special guest, Mr. Reagan, for not being here anymore. But we've also got the people who stuck with us through thick and thin. Tom Connors is still eating his cereal, so big shout out to him. Go check out Midnight's Edge when he's on it. They do good work over there. Odin from O&B Reviews. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, my final thought is I wonder how large this bowl is of cereal. Like I
he
want
eats
that
slow.
bowl. I want that
eats out of a
bowl.
turtle shell.
A turtle shell. Oh my gosh! Wow, that poor turtle. I hope it was ethically killed.
A sea tortoise shell.
A sea tortoise. No, gosh.
Yeah, 300-year-old sea tortoise. Yes.
Oh no. Anyway, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble, X/Twitter, whatever platform you're on. Typically, I am also there. Box office breakdown gonna go live tomorrow around 3 p.m. And also, we'll have our typical live stream. Welcome to Asgard Podcast every Monday, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks as always.
And you're still knocking out those expert box office breakdowns for geeksandgamers.com as well.
Yes.
Be sure to check those out.
By the way, if you notice, these are from last night. This is Adam Krigler with an X over it because I was Odin Pool last night, and that's Scanner also with RIP because it's dead.
Lord of the Shelves.
Odin Pool.
Right there. Odin Pool.
Pool.
All right. Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts? What's going on with you? I know that you have a special birthday stream coming up immediately after we're done. So why don't you tell some people about that and anything else you want to say?
Yeah, we're going to get political. We're going to talk about the Joe Rogan, Donald Trump interview. We broke everything down. We have clips. I am very prepared for this. Plus, I turned 44 recently, and this is the stream to celebrate that. So come and join us over there. I have about 15 clips. I'm going to show it to my brother, and we're going to get his first reaction on live. And we're just going to talk about that whole thing and everything going on. I mean, like, we are so close to the election. And, you know, I got to say, mask off. I'm just supporting Trump at this point. And I'm hoping that he gets elected. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. I know you're disappointed at me.
No, it's
sorry.
I'm so surprised. Why?
Hey, did you-
Really?
did you vote yet?
Oh, no, you're
vote yet,
shot.
Brian?
You're shot.
Brian, did you vote yet?
No, I'm next week. I live in a state that is perpetually blue, but I'm still gonna vote. So if you live in a state that's not, and you're like, oh, I'm too tired, hey man, get off your ass and go get it done, please. Okay. I hate to be hyperbolic here, but like literal things are at stake at this point. And come watch the show.
Like your Disney portfolio.
Like my Disney portfolio. And damn it, I'm gonna be honest. That's the only reason I'm voting for Trump, guys. I need to get out. The Disney thing, it's not working. I need to be even, okay? I'm not even trying to be rich. I just want my money back.
I got kids.
I got kids, bro. But come watch the stream in a half an hour on my Popcast live channel, Pop Culture Unleashed, and we're gonna talk about all this stuff. It's gonna be awesome. It's called Pop Culture Unleashed. I will put the thing in chat.
Yeah, and Brian, you don't look a day over 56, so it's surprising.
I'm looking good for my age. I gotta be honest, dude.
Yeah. Speaking of looking good for his age, Mr. Butters, what's going on with the Salty Nerd Gaming channel?
Looking good for my age. Salty Nerd Gaming channel. We're doing 2 podcasts a week over there. Salt Divers, which is a dedicated Hell Divers show, which we have a lot of fun with, and our Weekend Respawn show, which we cover other games and news tidbits and stuff coming out of the gaming world. It's a lot of fun. We have a good time over there, me and Alex and our guys that we play with. And I'm trying to do like 2 to 3 live streams a week playing different games, and we're just having fun. It's good stuff. This channel's growing. Our Discord community is getting big. We just capped 1,000 people over there on Discord, so you can come join us over there at saltynerdiscord.com, which we've kind of taken over and turned it into a gaming Discord. But you know, the SMP stuff is still there. It's just I think we've kind of overwhelmed it. So, but we're having fun. It's good stuff.
And speaking of SMP stuff, we're going to be releasing our first episode breaking down the Peaky Blinders season 1 coming next Tuesday. And basically, we're every Tuesday episode of the Salty Nerd podcast, we're going to be doing episode by episode of season 1 of Peaky Blinders going forward. So that should be a lot of fun. And of course, we're going to be doing Saturday streams as well. And I'm going to stop announcing who we have scheduled to be on our Saturday streams, because every time I do it, it jinxes it. I swear to God. But big shout out to Keanu Thompson. Thoughts and prayers are with you right now, because she had a family issue, and we wish her the best, and we will try to get her back on the schedule as soon as possible. But I want to give big shout out to Anthony Mark, Mephisto's Movie Reviews, and Suki D in Utz. Thank you all so much for your super chat support. Really appreciate that. And Jillian and Eric Winberg for your gifted memberships. Always appreciate that as well. Guys, big love to y'all. Go vote. Help Brian. Help save his portfolio.
Come on.
Mephisto. So the Popcast Unleashed is going to be in about a half hour. So in the meantime, go check out Mephisto's Movie Reviews with the Real McCoy podcast. Big shout out to those guys. But be sure to watch Brian and Shane, because this will be the last Pop Culture Unleashed, because they're going to get canceled. They're going to get taken off YouTube.
Yeah,
I'll have you on when I'm driving to work, Brian.
Yeah,
thanks, man. Appreciate you, bro.
They will be accused of wrongthink, and rightfully so. So
Wait, I still haven't watched all the Rogan interview. Maybe I should watch that and then
about like
watch your
30
guys'
minutes left myself. Yeah.
We're gonna go over the highlights. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, you can get it from us.
All right, guys. So tune in next week. Same salty time, same salty channel. And as always, stay salty, my friends.